Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited about presenting something interesting and can't wait to show you what I've been up to for the last few days. But first I want to talk about our launch for June, So Confident. We're very excited about this as well. As you know, I always start out with what we're doing each month for So Confident, and last month we were working with the eTee pattern. And this month we're working with the eTee pattern as well. But we've made it so easy for you because we know that you're all very busy with gardening and family obligations and weddings and graduations and so forth. And so your sewing time may be slightly more limited at the moment. But we also know there's going to be a rainy day and you're going to need a project. So I want to show you what we're doing. We took the eTee pattern and we are offering up 3 different sleeve options. And when you sign up for either the monthly class or, of course, the yearly program, you actually get the sleeve pattern. So while normally we're having you do some pattern work, sometimes a lot of pattern work, in this case, the patterns are provided for you, all graded, ready to go. The eTee is available in extra small to XXL and 1X to 5X. So pick up that pattern as well and have us print it if you would like. But here are the t-shirts. So this is the eTee body as we know it, nicely shaped through the side seams, beautiful little curved, gently curved hem, standard ready to wear binding at the neck. But this sleeve, number 1 sleeve, is the pleated sleeve. So, excuse me, it's a little bit longer, but it's sewn for about 1 inch at the bottom, and then it's an inverted pleat above that. And in the Q&A, which we have 2 times in June, where we answer individual questions, talk about the project, really just deal with whatever you need to know, I'm going to talk about how to lengthen this sleeve because we've had that question on our live class last Friday. We filmed the class as a live Zoom class this month, something different. So, but we recorded it. So those of you who are members of So Confident can, of course, go back and watch the class. But if you sign up for the class, you will have the full recording plus the questions that came up as well. So first sleeve was the pleated sleeve. Second sleeve is a gathered sleeve. So we have a bit of a cap of the sleeve. And this is essentially a rectangle, not quite, but it is bigger so that you can gather it onto the upper sleeve and leave the raw edge at the top of this section and hem the bottom. So because this is made out of a jersey, then this curls and gives this some dimension and a really cute gathering. So that's the gathered sleeve. And the third sleeve is a longer sleeve, somewhat tapered, and then it has an opening at the bottom with a tie. Now there's a dart for a couple of inches up here, then it opens up to a vent, and 2 tails that form this tie. So those are the 3 sleeves. This is one of the colors of the kits that we're offering. We have 9 colors of beautiful cotton knit and spandex. So check that out. We are ordering some more fabric today, and we want to make sure that we have enough of everything for everyone for the entire month. But 9 colors, 9 beautiful saturated colors, everything from red to violet to a couple of blues, teal, sunburst yellow, just a range of colors that's going to, I think, suit anyone who is interested in making this beautiful t-shirt. So join us for So Confident June eTee sleeve options. All right, so some of you may know that I am going on a little personal vacation, leaving in another week or so, for just a short week, basically. But I'm carrying on because that's been suggested by the friend of mine who's running this little trip, and partly because I'm getting off of a plane, getting on a train, and I don't want to deal with a lot of luggage. And we're going into the mountains of Switzerland. So when my friend sent me the list of what I needed to take, on the list was swimsuit and cover-up and a dress to wear to dinner, maybe for the last night or something like that. Well, there's problems with all of that. I don't own a swimsuit. Don't really want to be seen in a swimsuit, but okay. I know that the water in Switzerland in the mountains is beautiful and clear and drinkable and all of that, so I'll probably want to get in that water. And so I do need a cover-up. Don't really have one. If you don't have a suit, you don't have a cover-up. And I really don't have what I call a cover-up slash dress, something that that has kind of two purposes, both as a cover-up and as a fun dress. So I was poking around on the internet, and I thought, I'll just buy a dress. I don't really feel like making one. I'm so sorry about my voice today. I don't know what's going on. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much for my gravelly voice. So I was poking around on various sites, and I ran into this dress. And I just loved the mix of patterns from this bold print here and then a very contrasting different motif pattern for the sleeves. And I thought, well, I'll just buy that dress. That looks like a swimsuit cover-up, but I think it also really goes into something for a dinner as well. So I looked at the price, and it was $1,925 for this 100% cotton dress. And so, of course, I did not click buy. I thought, oh, I can make that. So what pattern would I use? And the most obvious feature, I thought, was this neckline that kind of hugs the neck and has a seam down the front. Kimono style shaping, generally, the sleeve and the whole thing. So I immediately thought of our Ikina jacket. The Ikina jacket has that raised neckline with a band. That picture to me looked like it had a band. Now granted, this has some piping, but that's completely optional. This is definitely a kimono style jacket. Has a full sleeve with another band on the bottom of that. And pockets, which I don't need, and all of that. But I thought this was truly the beginning of what could become what I have on. So I had limited time to sew over the weekend, but I wanted to get this done not only for the trip, but to show today. So I left here Friday after work, had about an hour before I had to do something else, and I worked on the pattern and cut out. Saturday morning I had a couple of hours to spare, realized I'd cut it out incorrectly, so I recut it out. I cut it out with the pots and plants going down instead of up. I hadn't even looked at it really. And so by the time I'd ruined quite a bit of fabric, then there was no amount of matching that was going to happen on anything. I just barely had enough fabric to even cut it out. But point is, I cut it out, sewed the shoulder seams, began sewing the band, had to go do some things for the rest of the day. I was out of town on Sunday. I got back about 5 o'clock and decided and then I had to do something else Sunday night. So I had a couple of hours to spare Sunday evening, and I got the whole thing done. So I would say, if I hadn't cut it out wrong, I probably could have made this in about 3-4 hours. In this case, it probably took 5 hours with everything. But that's not bad. And what it also proved to me is you can fit a little sewing in when you sort of least expect it. Now, I might have normally gone home at 5 o'clock on Friday, knowing I had to be someplace at 6:30, and just gotten redressed and, I don't know, sat on the patio or whatever. But I knew I had an hour. Well, it's amazing what you can accomplish in an hour. Same thing with Saturday morning. I had to go to Kansas City to play tennis, but I knew I had 2 hours. 2 hours. The clock in my head said 2 hours. At the end of 2 hours, I was done. And it just felt better that I was working on it, and it didn't land as this worry thing that, oh my gosh, I've got to have it done by Tuesday, so what am I going to do Monday night? Whatever. It was great. So I'm going to tell you what I did to the pattern and how I made the dress and why it went so quickly. The pattern work is really pretty darn simple. Well, first of all, I held the pattern pieces up to me in front of a mirror and decided that I would add 8 inches to the length. Now, the picture of this one is mid-knee. I decided I needed a little more than that, and this actually is the kind of garment that I think could be full length, almost to the floor, more like a muumuu or a long robe or something like that. So, but I decided it was going to be a semi-short dress. 8 inches to the front and back. What I realized, after the fact actually, is because of the way the original Ikina jacket is constructed, this front band pattern is 2 inches shorter than the front. I didn't pick up on that until it was way too late. So I had lengthened this originally 8 inches, but realized I really needed to lengthen it 10 inches. So I have a little 2-inch piecing going on in my band, which you can't see. Then I decided I wanted to form this A shape. This garment, the jacket, is fairly straight up and down. In fact, it's virtually straight up and down. And I wanted to make it A-shaped. So I decided, because I know that this is a little bit oversized, not terribly in the hips, but generous in the bust and the shoulders and the sleeves. So I started with a small right under the arm, and then I just took a straight ruler and drew a straight line out to the size large at the hem. Now, after this is all said and done and made, I could have easily have gone out more. Maybe gone up to an XXL, maybe just added several inches. I think that's something you can decide to do if you choose to make this dress. But that's what I did, was I went from a small to a large. Just went up 2 sizes. Because I knew I wanted to add more width to the band on the sleeve, then I shortened the sleeve 1.5 inches, and I made this band 1.5 inches wider, which means I added 3 inches total. So I needed 1.5 inches on the front and 1.5 inches on the back, so that's a total of 3 inches. And I added my 1.5 inches to the top and the bottom of the band piece that I made. So this band is 6 inches. I don't think I have that written on here, but this is 6 inches wide rather than 4.5 inches wide, which is the original width of the band. So that was easy. That didn't take me very long at all. So this is how I made it. I started by sewing the shoulder seams, and I just did a little quick finish with my serger, 3-thread stitch on the finish. And then it was time to sew the band. Of course, the band comes in 2 pieces, and I had to think about the direction of that. Because of these plants that go up, I wanted to make sure that the plants went up, or the design went up on both of the bands. Because normally it would be, I think, more normal to just continue, and then the plants would have been down on one side and up on the other side. So I sewed the back seam and pressed the entire band in half lengthwise. And then I serged along one long edge all the way around. That was my finish. I didn't cut anything off, so I left my 5/8 inch turn down that is normally turned down. I sewed the band to the front all the way around, trimmed it, so forth, pressed it. And then I put this garment on. Even though it was not connected at the sides, I just stood in front of the mirror and I decided where this point it should be on this opening, where I should stop sewing. So before I did anything else to the band, I opened up those bands and sewed from the very bottom to this point along that center crease line that I'd made when I pressed the band in half. So this is just backstitched right here just to reinforce it. Then I was able to turn the band to the inside, and because I'd left that 5/8 of an inch and it was already finished, I just stitched in the ditch all the way around the band. Super simple. Didn't have to turn it, hand stitch it, slip stitch it, whatever. It was ready to go. I used my number 10 Bernina foot, which is an edge stitch foot, and I didn't move the needle position. I just put the guide bar in the ditch, and my stitch just followed it. It was super easy. Can't even see it. So basically I did the same thing for the sleeve contrast. I pressed the contrasting band in half, and then I finished with a 3-thread serge one edge and sewed the band right sides together to the sleeve. And then I sewed the sleeve seam and the side seam all in one. I was able to turn the contrasting band to the wrong side and again stitch in the ditch. So this is where I realized I was in trouble, because the two band widths at the bottom of the hem was 2 inches shorter than what I had intended for the dress. Well, there was really nothing to do but cut off that 2 inches, make the hem, of course, even all the way around, serge the edge of that, and turn that 3/4 of an inch to the wrong side and top stitched it. I had intended for this dress to have a 2-inch hem originally, but it doesn't have it. Can't see it. Doesn't matter. It worked out just fine. So then I put the dress back on and determined with a pin where I wanted to put this little loop and button. I thought about not even bothering with this, but it's so simple to make that I thought, I think it'll add a nice little touch to it. So I determined that it was right here, and I made a loop by taking an 1.5 inch wide piece of bias fabric and with right sides together, yes, right sides together, I sewed a narrow stitching very close, about 3/16 of an inch from the fold. But the key to sewing this is to sew this with what we call a funnel at one end. So here, this represents my stitching, which is very close to the fold. But you need to leave a pretty decent beginning so that you can turn this much, much easier. So I used my ballpoint bodkin. The last time I was on Facebook Live trying to demonstrate using a ballpoint bodkin, it was a complete disaster and I couldn't get it turned. Well, I realized after Facebook Live that I had not left this funnel. So this time I did, and so you put the ball end of this ballpoint bodkin down through the tube until you can't see it anymore. And then you sew, this has a little eye on one end, you literally sew this eye to the fabric at the top end, and you begin to wrap it around, so you're kind of closing that up and secure it with a knot. And then you can simply push this down and easily get the tube to turn on itself. So I got a really narrow, nice, narrow little loop on this, really easy. And then I just simply sewed a button that had a shank. I thought that would look better than one that didn't. And I was done. So this is my dress. Now, would I do some things differently had I had more than 4 or 5 hours to sew it? Maybe. Would I have matched this pattern of the bands to this bold print? Maybe. Would I have used the contrasting fabric for these bands? Maybe. You can comment about that in the chat if you want to. Would this have looked better with the contrasting fabric? Had I thought about it, would I really have put certain colors of my band towards the front that I think are a little bit prettier? Maybe, maybe not. I didn't give it much thought. I simply cut them out. But I find that the backs of the bands are a little bit prettier than the fronts. It just turned out that way. But I am pretty happy with this, and this is going to go in my suitcase. It'll fold really nice and flat. You know, I could have put pockets in this if I'd wanted to. If I'd really wanted to invest my life into this dress, I could have easily worked on some details. Probably could have even have eliminated these front bands below a certain point. But you know what? This is probably one of those things that I will take on a trip. I'll wear it a couple of times, and then when I'm home, I think this is probably something that I will wear as a robe, perhaps. A little bit of a cover-up at home, lounge at home. You know, I do my elegant lounging at home. But you know what I mean. Or I might wear it to a fun summer party or a picnic or something like that. Speaking of robes, this is also the Ikina as a robe. And so you can do a lot of things with this pattern, this Ikina Two pattern. We showed this a while back with some contrasting fabric at the bottom band that matches the contrasting band on the sleeves. And this band in the front stops a little bit shorter than actually the bottom. So this was, you can refer back to a different Facebook Live. It also has a belt if you want to. I thought about a belt for this. I'm not much of a belt girl, but I do think it would look good with a belt. So, what do you think? Did it turn out okay? It's a really fun fabric. I mean, it's just happy, summer. I don't know, I just fell in love with the graphic part of this fabric and the fact that the contrast is so different. I mean, there's nothing about it except that it's flowers that could, I suppose, go in the vase. I mean, there's really nothing about it that relates except it looks great. I'm happy with the contrast. So, what do you think? Worth it?
There were a couple comments. I mean, some love just the simple contrast, and then some love that maybe there would be contrast on the band too.
Yeah.
So
I think if I were to really engineer this, I might have cut this band off right here, continued the fronts below that with a seam. I think the seam in the front is fine, and this could have been a bit of contrast. That would have been all right as well. So this is the fabric that I used. It's a 45-inch wide fabric. For this dress, I used 3 yards. Yeah, see these flowers. I really had to look at that, but I love the combination of the vases, the leaves, the semicircles. I don't know, it's just kind of up my alley, and of course my colors all over the place. And then the way this looks totally different when you look at it in a big piece. This has a texture to it. I don't know how to describe the texture a little bit, but the weave of it has a little bit of a strié to it. But isn't this gorgeous? And this is a really, really beautiful fabric. This comes from Italy. It's just one of those special fabrics that we have. So of course you could make a whole dress or a whole blouse out of this and not use it as a contrast, but we have added the ability to order just a half a yard of that because you don't need any more than that. Normally we have a 1 yard minimum for our fabric orders, but for that particular fabric you can order a half a yard. So 3 yards for what I used, and for an XXL you do need 4 yards. So that might help you calculate. Basically you need a couple of lengths plus a sleeve length. So if you want a long dress, you can calculate that. If you want something shorter, you can calculate that. But I would say 3 yards is pretty minimum that you need to order.
we have a couple questions if you want. So can you make it, are these all cotton, and can you make it in something other than cotton?
These, we have one non-cotton fabric on the wall. Everything on the wall is cotton. And yes, I purposely wanted a cotton dress. I guess I was influenced by this $2,000 cotton dress. But yes, you can make it in anything. This happens to be a linen and viscose fabric, and so it has a little more drape. And a little more drape is always good. So, you know, this is a different kind of drape than cotton. But I don't know why you couldn't make this in linen, in our viscose linen. You could make it in knit. I think it's pretty wide open as to what you could use.
And what weight of cotton is it?
Well, this is what I call quilting cotton weight, if that tells you anything. I know there are varieties of quilting cottons, but this is just kind of a mid-weight quilt-like cotton.
They love this idea for something quick to throw on, and you look great, Linda.
It's funny, when I love bold patterns, but you have to accept the fact that when you wear something like this, you know, this is, I'm not going to disappear into the wallpaper. Well, I might disappear into the wallpaper, but I won't disappear into
Maybe this background.
yeah, in the background. This is a, you know, people are either going to say something to you or they're not, but you're going to be noticed, which I sort of like every once in a while. Not always, but I like it. I think that the other garment that can be made in these kinds of prints is the Venice shirt. And this is a summer version of the Venice that Rhonda Gaddy made for us, based on a garment that Alex had made, based on another garment that Kathy had made, I think. So we've had various iterations of the Venice, but this also can handle a bold, big print as well. And you could do contrasting ruffles if you wanted to. This is normally has a button up front, collar and stand, long sleeves, cuff, the whole bit. But you take out many of those elements and you've got something here that's pretty easy to make as well. So we have we have a tutorial on how to make the Venice into that, and it's called the Venice Do, I believe. I don't have that written down here.
Yes.
Venice Do workshop or something like that. So it's a separate tutorial that's also on sale this week. So more questions, I'm sorry.
Did you sew the button loop under the inside band?
I did. The loop was put on at the last minute. Now, had I known placement ahead of time, which I could have figured out, probably as I was figuring out this point, I could have also identified this point, and I could have sewn the loop on by machine. But because I hadn't done that, I just, and because it's on the bias, the ends are not going to ravel. So I just placed the loop and did some hand stitching through the under layer only. So the stitching doesn't show on the top side of the band.
Is there a way to slightly narrow the band at the neck?
Absolutely. This band can be any width you want. You do need to take that into account when you're talking about the entire width of the garment, because that's part of the width. So if you're going to make this band narrower, then you need to make that difference up at the side seam or someplace else. But yes, this band can be any width. Yeah, for some people you might not like it this high. I sort of do. Kathy Davis and I laugh about this all the time. You know, we're at the point where we really don't like our necks. And so just a bit of a cover up there it feels good to me. But if you can cut that down if you choose to, no problem. Okay, so let me show you the fabrics that we picked out. So not only do we have the two fabrics that I have on, we have the same fabric in a different colorway with a pink background. Now again, these motifs are upside down, but pink background instead of the green background, but the same vases and plants, and I think this is really, this would have, had I known we had this when I chose this would have been a toss-up actually. But we chose this fabric for the sleeve contrast. And of course, as I'm showing you main fabrics and contrasting fabrics, there is no reason why you can't make a total garment out of the contrasting fabrics. You know, don't think you have to buy just a little bit. Then we have, this is cotton. This is cotton. This is a little bit of more of a lawn weight cotton. This is more of that quilting cotton with, so it has some structure to it. You can tell by the way I have on, what I have on here. This is also a quilting weight cotton, more of a tropical motif with even some, I don't know, some buds and really interesting, I guess, tropical plants. But we've put it with this spotted print for the contrast. These two are the same weight of fabric. Betsy wanted this one on here, and I think she's right. I think the pattern is really perfect for this kind of dress. And because we had already picked out this fabric to go with this fabric, we all thought it went with this fabric as well. So these two look good with the all yellow and white contrast on the bottom. This is the one that's the linen and viscose, so it has a different feel to it. Very nice fabric, though. This one's cotton. A nice sheen of cotton, a little bit more of a lawn weight than the two over there. But that's just a burst of beautiful flowers. And I think the yellow really gives it a kick. We've had a couple of fabrics like this in the past in various weights, and there's something about this color combination that feels there's a brand that I'm probably not going to be able to think of, and I kind of associate this with a southern brand. I wish I could think of the name.
Like a Lily Pulitzer. Is what
Exactly, Lily Pulitzer. Thank you very much. Exactly. So, but this is a nice, beautiful, beautiful cotton, more lightweight than these. And this is upside down as well, but these pod-like seed motifs are beautiful. Beautiful green, a beautiful pink. So we put it with this. A different scale, brings in another color, but I think it really works together. So those are our presentations for today of main fabrics and contrasting fabrics to make a dress with 2 fabrics, or any one of these would make a dress or a Venice shirt or anything, actually. So, anything else?
Just going to come back a smidge here so they can see. So it ends at your knee.
It ends right below my knee. Yeah. I have on green sandals today.
Of course.
Well, which are probably not the shoes I would take to Switzerland. These are platform shoes. I'm not wearing platforms in Switzerland walking around. I'll probably wear some flat sandals, or maybe my sneakers.
So that's what you'd wear instead of
Yeah.
something more comfortable.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any other questions. I think all these fabrics kind of, you could really mix and match.
Yeah.
So many of these together. A couple people mentioned that.
Yeah, I think scale is a big issue with matching patterns. I mean, you would look at some of these and go, I don't get it. You know, they're so different. But that's kind of the point of this. And that's what I'm seeing in so many ready-to-wear lines, are these really at odds fabrics. But the scales are different, and that's what helps it. This is a busy pattern, smaller, but it just works with this. And you know, if you want to compare each color, okay, no, they don't match, but it works.
What's your trick of standing back?
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's a good point.
You stand back and squint, right?
Right, exactly.
Can you turn around so we can see the back?
Yeah. I was able, I think, to get a central motif down the center back. But as I said, I had cut out the 2 fronts upside down. So by the time I recut, I was squeezing it. And I didn't care where anything landed. I had the advantage of having more fabric here, but I don't always like to do that. And I was home. And I didn't really want to come back and cut another length and waste fabric and all that. So I was able to get my bands out of the 2 fronts that I'd cut, but then I had to piece a little bit around the neck.
And what height have you drafted for?
Probably about 5'6", 5'7". I'm 5'6", or was. I think I still am, sort of. And I don't usually have to mess with lengths too much on our patterns.
Someone suggested that you could use the inseam pocket instead of the patch pockets.
Exactly. Our inseam pocket, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the Picasso pants. That would be the perfect pocket to put in here.
And then someone else suggested you could also do pencil pants with it in the same color from the contrast.
Well, that's true. I am a bit sensitive about my legs, and I'm not one to really show them all that often. We talked about my wearing leggings today, but I don't happen to own any summer weight or color of leggings. But it's certainly an option, I think, to wear even some shorter leggings or some skinny pants. You see this look a lot.
Is the front band cut on the bias?
No, it's not. Now, the original Ikina jacket did have a band on the bias. But when we reissued the Ikina 2, we put the band on the straight of grain. I never found the reason that we did that. It could be if you're using something and you want to change the direction of the motif, then yes, you could cut it on the bias. But this is not. This is cut on the straight. If it were cut on the bias, it might hug a little bit better, but even in the old days of the Ikinas, I didn't feel like it did that much better. So,
On the textured cotton geometric, what is the drape similar to?
this one is, well, it's pretty similar to the weight of the regular cottons.
Has a nice drape.
Yeah,
You know, it's,
this is a really fantastic fabric.
Okay, I don't see any other
All
questions.
right. Well, so today, of course, we have all of these fabrics on sale. We have the Ikina Two Jacket pattern on sale and the Venice Shirt pattern. And we have 2 tutorials. We have a tutorial from So Confident online workshop, how to make the Ikina Two Jacket like this. So it shows you how to make the piping, match the patterns on the pocket, match the motifs on the pocket, how to do the vents, all of that. But it's a great workshop for how to make the normal, regular Ikina Two Jacket. And then this Venice Do tutorial is also on sale. All right.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I will see you next Tuesday, and thanks for joining me.